Tonight we're doing HF antennas, and I got to tell you, of all the different topics, of all the different areas that you can do, HF antennas is deep. It is really deep. I mean, build your own, buy your own, do it. It's a very deep subject. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to take it in pieces, and we're going to start with the most simplest of antennas, and then we're going to work our way up to the most complex. I ask that you don't bring up a new antenna until you wait, because it's probably coming up in the slideshow. In other words, don't say, yeah, that one's good, but I like this one, because that one's probably later in the slideshow. So that's all I'm asking, is let's just deal with the antenna on the screen, and then we're going to go to the next. Then at the end, I will leave an opportunity for you guys to bring up any additional antennas, because I don't have near all of them on here. So I got the ones that I got off the Sunshine Net. For those of you who didn't hear me earlier, I was the net controller on the Sunshine Net, and I wrote down what everybody's favorite antennas were. So that's kind of our starting point tonight. I got 30 something responses there, and and that's how I figured out which antennas we were going to talk about. But we are just going to start with the very basic ones. So we're basically going to start with omnidirectional antennas, an antenna that basically spews out its energy in every direction, just like a bare light bulb would in a room. And so that's basically where we're going to start, is on the omnidirectional antennas. I broke everything down into 3 sections tonight. We're going to do basically omnidirectional antennas, we're going to directional antennas, and then we're going to do mounting and stealth applications. So there's kind of 3 sections we're going to be doing tonight. And John and everybody out there, please pipe up, talk about this stuff with me, because I don't know anything about this stuff. All right, the first one, the HF single band dipole. I put this one on here. This one's a great, I've already built one of these myself on 1 band. And then I rebuilt it for 2 or 3 other different bands, and it's a fun little project. I'd like to open it up now for anybody that wants to discuss this. This is something you can build at home. Doesn't require any fancy anything, because you're building it just for 1 band. So it doesn't require anything, not even a tuner. If you do it right, and you are able to cut it to the right length and everything, you can make this antenna, put it on your radio, and use it without even using a tuner. That's what's great about it. So I'll open this up right now for anybody that wants to talk about these a basic single band dipole antenna.
I have read, this is Vic, I have read that your feed line needs to be close to a multiple of a quarter wavelength. Is that true?
I have not heard that. Has anyone else heard that? Okay, and on a standard dipole, I have never heard of any requirements that the feed line be a certain length or anything. So I would have to look that up. I have not heard anything about that.
I'll comment on that, Ian, real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
I've heard that before, but one way to stop that is just to put a 1-to-1 balun up at the point, and that'll stop any of that common mode coming back down on you. And that way it won't try to use the feed line as a counterpoise.
Okay, so that must be that then. All right. All right, so let's just move on to the next one here. The one thing you got to make sure on all this stuff, and I don't need to tell you guys this, but is your isolators. But you, if you're home brewing this at home, you don't have to buy fancy isolators. You can use almost anything that's completely non-conductive. And all right, the next one here is a trap dipole. I have not messed with this yet, but by using the traps, I believe we can shorten up the line. Is that the reason for that? Does anybody want to speak to this one? Okay, and these are go ahead.
Yeah, traps are usually inserted in the line to allow you multi-band. In other words, they cut off part of your antenna length when you're using a shorter band, and as the band gets longer, then you add more wire to it with the trap. But traps also will effectively shorten the length. Say your longest length you wanted was 80 meters, and you've got a 80 meter, 40 meter trap in there, then you would you would shorten the length somewhat. It wouldn't come out to the full calculation of 80 meters.
All right, cool. And they do sell these, although I will admit I only had one person bring this one up. Not that popular of an antenna. This one's a little more popular. This one is a parallel dipole or a fan dipole. This is one where basically it's a simple dipole, and then you add additional dipoles to it to get you the different bands that you want. So it will resonate on the one frequency you're looking for. I'll open this up. Does anyone want to talk about these?
I can talk about it there, Ian.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so I have quite a bit of experience with these because I like building antennas, and this is the way that I deal with a lot of problems that you run into. One nice thing about these over the trapped dipoles that you showed earlier is they're not near as lossy. Those coils can cause you to lose some power, so to speak, radiation, whatever. The only thing about fan dipoles are when you make them really long, you've got to get your separators good enough so that the thing doesn't spin in the wind or anything like that. But for the most part, they work really, really well. I have had good luck with, 2-inch separators up to 5 to 6-inch separators, and they haven't made a difference to me. I don't know what other people's experience has been, but I like them because you can have multiple bands that you want specifically. So if you want like 3 bands specifically, you can just cut it for all 3 and have it all in one antenna, and you're only using the same supports. Although off of the ends, you might have to put some, I'll call them support ropes, because they're going to be shorter in length.
All right, yeah, and I think it's so cool that that the signal will go up there and will resonate on the one it's supposed to resonate on. It's always that old story is, you take a pill for a headache. How does it know? How does it know where to go? But that's so cool how it does that. I think that's amazing. And there's several different designs here right on the screen. I saw one where the longest band was almost horizontal, and then each band came down like a V shape, and each one, the separation became more as they came down. And then I've seen others like this. I think you're right though about that. You would need some kind of separator, and you would need a bunch of them to make sure that your wire stays the same separation all the way across. So I probably wouldn't be real good in real windy places. Random length multi-band dipole. That's pretty much what I'm running now at home. I mean, am I correct? That's my 60 odd foot on each end length wire that I'm running at home with a ladder line into a tuner. That's pretty much what I'm running here now, I think. And that's probably the most common antenna that people get started with. They're about $70. They're really not that expensive to buy.
Okay, can I ask?
Does anybody want to speak about that? Yeah, go ahead, Anthony.
Yeah, I wanted to ask a question. I noticed that you have a ladder line going in here to the tuner. What if you had a balun all the way up on top there, and then instead of running this, you ran a regular coax cable into the tuner? Is that reasonable? Because
John?
Okay, so one of the reasons that they're running the ladder line is because the ladder line is at 450 ohms, first of all, and that's compensating for what's going on up above. Also, a ladder line is better than coax. Coax actually has a lot of issues with it because it's an unbalanced line. You think of coax as being balanced yourself because you think everybody uses it, but it's actually an unbalanced line. So the problem is when you're going from balanced to unbalanced is a problem. Whereas this dipole here, although it's random length, so it's probably not balanced, it helps compensate for that. The other thing about the ladder line is you need to have enough of a length. You can't go like 5 feet. That just doesn't work. You have to be long enough. Usually it's 20, 25 feet. So if you don't have a way to get it up high enough or get it far enough away from where you're coming in, sometimes that becomes a problem. I don't play with ladder line much, but that's one of the issues that people is. But it is great to use when you're using it with the right antennas.
And I know with ladder line, if you're cutting ladder line, there is some formulas for that, I'm pretty sure, that would give you a better performance.
Another advantage of ladder line is low loss. Coax cable is lossy in comparison even at the lower frequencies, but you can run a mile of 450 ohm ladder line to an antenna and you won't have hardly any loss. So that's one of the big advantages.
Now, out of my, here comes a newbie question. Here it comes. Out of mine, I've got a 25-foot piece of very thick, low loss coax that runs into what I believe is a whatever that goes into, and then there's the two lugs on there that the ladder line starts out.
Yeah.
I think that's it's a balun or an unknown. I'm not sure what it is.
Probably a
but,
4-to-1 balun.
yeah, I mean, this antenna was given to me by Tom Lambie, so I don't even have the paperwork on it. But yeah, it has that. Now I'm wondering if I can mount that a little closer to the shed. Would I be better off bringing that ladder line straight in and hooking it into the wing nuts on the back of my rotor tuner, or am I going to get a lot of loss with that 25-foot in that little glass thing that it connects to, the unun or whatever it is that it connects to? You understand what I'm trying to say? Right now, I got 25 foot of coax going into this connector, and then I've got another 25 feet of ladder line going up to the element. So I'm trying to figure out if I should try to get it to where the ladder line makes it all the way in straight to the tuner and doesn't have to go through that extra step.
Well, I don't know. That's a good question. If you had, like, say you had 300 feet to go to the antenna, I would definitely say make the vast majority of it ladder line.
Right.
You can get away with a small piece of coax. And it's better that it be low loss coax. Heck, if you're real concerned about it, change the coax to LMR 400 or something. But you can run. The big thing is you want to maximize that 450 ohm line as much as you can, because that is extremely low loss. So you won't lose much signal with it.
See, I'm wondering if I would be better off repositioning my line so I can bring the ladder lines, because my tuner has lugs right on the back where your ladder line can hook straight up. I could try that and see if my gain's any better.
You can try it. It's probably not going to be a perceptible difference, would be my guess.
Yeah, then it may not be worth it because I have to re-engineer.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
Yeah, no, I had another question. I just looked at my tuner, and it's an auto tuner and everything else, and I'm looking, and I don't even have lugs to hook up the ladder line to. It's just for coax cable attachment, and that's it.
Yeah.
To bring it in. So the last time setup I had a line going, regular coax going from the balun up on top, right next to the insulator, okay, and going into the tuner. That was it. And you're right, I did not have good reception. I did not hook up with too many people or anything. But I'm just,
Well, let's say you don't have a provision on the back. What is it? Your tuner?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I have a what's it? IT 100 LDG tuner, auto tuner, that my son gave it to me because I wouldn't know any better and buy something like that.
Yeah. Well, what you do is you're on a short piece of coax out to a balun outside. And then the rest of it, you make it your 450 ohm ladder line, and that should work just fine.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to run ladder line into your shack.
I'd rather not do that either.
Ladder line will resonate. So you're bringing RF into your shack.
Yeah, you don't want.
Whereas shielded coax, you're still going to resonate some, but not nearly as much as the 450 ohm.
And you can always put a choke balun and you put inside too and stop that. That's what I've got.
Okay. But then the issue is I have to have at least you said at least a 25-foot long ladder line, right?
Yeah, it would be helpful. I've run it shorter than that, and it only worked on one band long time ago.
The
days when I was ignorant about antennas.
I see. Okay, great. Thank you for this input. This is really valuable. I would not have known this. Thank you.
All right.
Hey, Ian, and correct me if I'm wrong, but a random length dipole isn't really any length of dipole. You have to make sure that the length is not resonant on any band, or you won't get the multiple bands. I'm pretty sure of that, but I'm not an expert.
So in other words, you don't want to make it an 80-meter antenna and then try to tune it to everything else. You want it to literally be off all the frequencies.
That's the way I understand it. A
Yeah,
random
what's
length.
going to happen on, you make it an 80-meter antenna like that, and you go to tune up on 40, you're going to run into high impedance. And then
Oh.
you'll be able to run 20 and maybe 15 and 10, but you will not be able to use it on 40.
See what I mean about this being so deep? we could spend a month on this, I swear.
Oh yeah, easily, more than that.
All right. Well, all right. Let's move on to the next one. They get a little
Ian?
bit better.
Ian?
This is basically a configuration for a
Right.
dipole.
Yeah.
And this is the configuration I'm using at home right now. I've got my center point up about 22 feet, and I've got my endpoints at about 10 feet each. And I'm getting pretty good with it. I'm doing pretty good with it. So does anybody want to talk about the inverted V? I think that's pretty unanimous that this is a great configuration if you're going to use a
Ian?
long wire. Yeah.
I had if I could just have a question,
Yeah, go
real
ahead, Rick.
newbie question. I probably should have asked it before, but it occurred to me. I see that for the elements you're using copper wire. That's highly suggested over aluminum? And question with that, which is best, solid wire or stranded, say copper in that field? And then if it were solid, what gauge would be recommended? How would you judge those things? Thanks a lot.
John, you want to field that one?
Yeah, I'll field some of this. First of all, copper, it's all about velocity in that. So copper seems to be the better way to go. Although you could use aluminum, it may be a different length in the end. I don't use solid copper wire because most of my applications are going to be more portable for that. If you were going to make it permanent, but not really out in the weather, stranded the solid's fine, but the stranded's really more giving. So if you're going to have it outside, the experience outside is better with the stranded wire. And remember, over time, copper will get a little longer, so you may have to readjust it at some point, as things go on. And so that's my recommendation, is to go with the stranded, because in the end, it gives you a little more flexibility, because like any wire, over time it can kink and crack off. So that'd be a problem.
Thank you for that. I was going to ask you, approximately what gauge would you say would work best?
Okay, for what though? What application?
Does it matter?
Well, sure. If I'm going to do a quick portable, I might use 22 gauge, but if I'm going to leave it up outside, I might do 14.
14, yeah.
Oh,
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Thank you for
Based on
that.
what you're going to do with it, what's it going to be exposed to?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? Did you say if you do it in the inside, what size gauge did you say to do it?
Okay. No, what I was saying is, if I was going to do it portable, let's say I wanted something I could throw up real quick. Well, I want something really light, maybe 20 gauge, 22 gauge. But if I'm going to leave it up for some time, I'm going to want something a little more durable, maybe even 14 gauge. But remember, the more gauge you get, the heavier it gets. So now you got to consider your points, where you're hooking up.
Right. Thank you. I misunderstood. Thank you.
For that.
Okie doke. All right. Anything else on the dipole or the inverted V?
Yeah, another thing I would say is with aluminum wire, it's the same problem you're going to get like they had put several years ago with aluminum wire and house wiring. If you connect it to a copper or anything, you're going to get a bimetal reaction and you get corrosion. So it's the same problem they had with the house wiring. So you want to make sure that if you do use aluminum wire, that you use stainless steel to connect it to the copper to get rid of that interaction.
There you go. I can tell you a story. When I was a kid, my father and I completely rewired my grandmother's trailer. She had a nice double wide trailer, but it was aluminum wiring, and she had a fire.
Yeah.
And she was able to extinguish the fire before it consumed the home. And then about 2 months later, she had another plug start smoking, and it was the copper in the plug and the aluminum wire, and it was causing a heat. You know how it is. And we had to rewire her house, or she was going to move because it was going to kill her. Anyway, yeah, I'm so glad they outlawed that stuff.
Yeah, I am
Although
too.
I wish I could find some now for making antennas with.
Hey,
Let's
can I
see
make
here.
a comment, Ian?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so just in the chat room here, Bruce brings up a good thing. He talks about doing like an antenna building party.
Yes.
You know, where people have bring a tuner. The one issue with this type of antenna building party is if we tune your antenna at a certain height, at a certain location near a certain amount of trees, and now you take it home and it's going to be in a little different environment. Sometimes it won't still be tuned and you're going to have to do it again anyway. Nothing wrong with learning how to build. That's not what I'm saying, but to make it so that it works, we'll say the same, is sometimes pretty difficult to do. But it's not that it can't be done. It's just you have to adjust it later.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, the environment around these antennas is somewhat important as well, as I'm sure you know. I mean, I got a corner of mine goes over the corner of my house, and I got another piece that's about 3 feet away from my mast, and I'm sure all that doesn't help. That's probably why I have to put out a little more wattage to get overseas, because I don't have optimum spacing and everything out there. But anyway, yeah,
you
that's
can
why
also feed that inverted V with 450 ohm line. And that would give you more flexibility as to what bands to get on and all that. If you're feeding it with coax, say it's a 40-meter antenna, you've got 40 and 15. But if you feed it with a piece of, 450 ohm lead, then you can tune it all over the place, with 40 being your minimum frequency.
Yeah, now mine, I got 25 foot of ladder line and 25 foot of coax after that. And I'm able to tune everything on here but 160.
Yeah.
160, I cannot get under 1 to 2. And also, it gets real squirrely around 6 and 10. But I think they all do. It's just way out of whack.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, when I'm tuning it on 6, sometimes I'll get a little RF burn from the tuner. So, and it's grounded, I swear. All right. Anyway, RF wire doublet. I know nothing about this. I had 2 or 3 different people mention this on the Sunshine Net. Is anyone familiar with the HF wire doublet? Okay, well, there's your homework assignment. Look up this one. Because I don't know anything about it either. So there's a couple in here that we might not, but I had several people recommend this, and it looks very similar to the other designs. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And then we've pretty much, this is just a random wire. Does anybody want to talk about this? I've never really heard of this, but I saw some stuff about it on there where you just use one long piece of wire. Does anybody want to talk about that?
Ian. Go ahead.
Ian, one thing about the inverted V, you got to have at least 90 degrees angle in there. That's not on the diagram, but you need 90 degrees. And the more you raise the legs, it's going to change the SWR. Plus, then it becomes a bidirectional
changes your power.
dipole as opposed to omnidirectional. So about 90 degrees, and get the middle as high as you can, and you keep them 90 degrees, you got an omnidirectional antenna for the most part.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and I tried to get that. I got like 20 feet, and then my ends are at about 10 feet. So I'm trying to get that 90 degree, but I'm so limited on where I got it. I got it kind of going right between this tree and around that, and I about killed myself cutting a branch down out of this other tree. Anyway, let's not talk about that.
Okay.
Has anyone used a random wire? Just one random long wire?
Certainly. The thing to remember about these is for each, as you change frequencies, you're going to get different patterns out of that guy. So he's, you can stick a piece of wire out your window like that, and he's going to work. But like I said, you're going to be all different directions as you go up the frequency spectrum. But yeah, you can match that. In fact, a good enough antenna tuner, you can match a paper clip on 160 meters now. Whether it radiates or not, it's a different story. But you can do all kinds of crazy things with that.
You may just light up the fluorescent lights in your kitchen, but yeah.
Right.
All
Hey,
right,
Ian, Dan,
ahead, Dan.
KD7ACB here. You were saying about the random wire. I've actually used one of those. I've got one of those in my little bag that I take with me with my portable station. It's single, set up for a single band, just for 20. But just for the heck of it, one year I took my TS480 and that
I got one of those.
random wire with about 50 feet of coax, took it down to Key West on vacation. And it's got a little matching network, at the end of it that you can hook up the coax. Threw that over the balcony and talked all over the place with it. California, and
wow.
Checked into I believe it was the Veterans Net or something. Anyway, one of the nets they were doing at one of the hospitals out in California. Talked to them in a couple of different states.
You were
And
probably
then
also
even
talking
got
on the TV in the room below you too.
Well, actually, I only had one person come up to me when we were down at the swimming pool and asked me. I never was told that I was interfering with anything. They said, "What's that wire hanging over your, balcony?" And then, of course, that started the conversation. I thought they were going to get us in trouble, and I thought, "Oh crap," I was getting into something or what. But no, he just was curious about. So then that started the conversation about ham radio and all that stuff. So. They do work. And yes, I have used one in less than optimal conditions and was able to make contacts, and it was pretty fun.
Yeah, I'm dealing here at my house right now. My wife, we have a set of speakers. I ran a wire down under the bed and back behind the bed, and we've got speakers on both sides of the bed, PC speakers. Well, you can imagine what those do when I'm on 80 and 40. I mean, they ran the whole time. So we now have my wife now, okay, do I need to go speakers off? Because that means she has to go back to the audio on the TV for a while because I'm using my big radio, as she calls it, my big radio. You're using the big radio tonight? Anyway, all right, verticals. And we're just going to talk about all kinds of verticals here. Basically, a vertical is just a vertical, and then you've got to have some kind of grounding radials there with it. And this one was the most highly recommended antenna of the entire Sunshine Net. And I've had people tell me they're really, really great. And I've had other people tell me that they get really narrow at 40 and 80, and they really just don't pick up that much in the higher band or in the lower frequencies or whatever you want to call it. So I'm going to put this out there. I'd love to hear what you guys got to say about it. It came highly recommended with a few people not highly recommending it. So there you go.
KC1FLU.
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, it depends on your vertical. If, as you see here in the diagram you've put up, you have a trap-based antenna versus a coil-based antenna. The two behave very differently, obviously. I've got a vertical with a sliding coil from Wolf River Coils, and using it at my QTHs in New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, and here in the Cape, I've been able to get contacts on 20, 40, and 80 between Slovenia, Cuba, and Venezuela. You just tune it, you slide the coil up and down to adjust, quote, your length, as it were, to tune to the band and tune it for lowest noise, or if you want to throw a meter on it and dial it in for lowest SWR, that also is good if you have a meter handy. But marvelous signals on single sideband, doing digital for RIDI and PSK work, and et cetera. So yeah, I can highly recommend verticals. And besides that, they're easy to set up. You put a stake in the ground, throw a couple of ground radials out, and you're on the air.
Well, see, this one here, I was looking at this one. I want to buy this one. It's only about $240 out of my price range. But
yeah, that is the other consideration, is the price. The Wolf River stuff is relatively inexpensive, and like I said, it comes in takedown sections, so it packs into a 5-foot long package if you want to travel with it. So if you're going to go do a field day or parks on the air, or traveling between your QTHs, if you have multiple, north south, if you're snowbirding it, it's a wonderful thing to do because it compacts into a 5-foot long package. You assemble it like a tent pole, literally, with just fitted, slotted, and up it goes, and you're radiating.
My question is, when it comes to ground wires, what's the minimum that you have to have? Because obviously, recommendation is you have 36 of them, 360 degrees. But what's the minimum in order to get a decent performance out of it?
Well, Anthony, I'll give you my experience. Personally, here at the Cape, where our house is next to a saltwater canal, I don't run any ground radials.
Really? Wow.
I have a galvanized pipe driven into the ground 3 feet that is about 12 foot from a saltwater canal. So obviously I've got good conductivity in this soil here. Up north at my Pennsylvania QTH, I will run 3 33-foot ground radials laid out across the clay soil up there because those conditions just, well, it's clay soil. It's terrible. So, what you do is do your reading and play. 14 gauge wire at Home Depot is pretty cheap. You get a couple of crimp connectors, lay out some radials, test it, play with it, see what best performance you have. That's part of our hobby, is playing around and seeing what works best for your particular situation. That's the best. Yeah. There you go. Yeah. Yeah. There you go. The spider web. Very good, right? Ian. Yeah.
I saw this.
I don't know if I don't know if my
research.
paycheck is big enough to cover that amount of copper. I mean, I don't know if I have that amount of copper in my house for plumbing pipe.
I'm gonna tell you what. There's probably $200 worth of copper laying in this yard. And if your neighbor kids find out about it in the morning, there won't be $400 worth of copper laying in this yard.
You've got that right. That is the other situation, right?
Yeah.
And also too, like I said, if you want to do field portable stuff, field expedient antennas, for field days, if you want to just go out through an antenna into a tree, keep it simple, keep it as easy as possible, and just go enjoy the hobby and talk to somebody. That's really what we're here for, right?
Exactly, and I thank you so much for this input.
Anthony, WG4K.
Go ahead, Anthony.
Well, this is Dave, WG4K. I have a 5.
Go ahead, Dave. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a 5 BTV, which I use for portable, or which I did use for portable. I used it with my motorhome. My counterpoints was just a 30-foot length chassis, the steel in the chassis. But if you go to DX Engineering, they show you how to make a common mode choke, and they recommend you use a common mode choke at the transmitter and a common mode choke at the base of the antenna for the type of installation I was doing. And it worked fine. And I used it. I talked back from the Yukon territory to Fort Myers, but I have since gone to a different vertical antenna, an Eagle 1, which is easier to deploy. And but I still have the 5 BTV.
Oh, okay. Here, I'm looking at the website here. That's what you're talking about right there, right?
No, a common mode choke is a coil of coaxial cable. I think about 7 turns at about 4 inches inside diameter, or maybe 5 inches inside diameter. So I've just got a coil of coax at the transmitter and a coil of coax at the antenna.
Some people do a thing called the ugly balance. Dave will know what that is too. They do the thing called the ugly balance, just a little bit more coax, but it's the same idea.
Yep. Wrap it around a piece of PVC, 4-inch. Yep.
Man, some of these grounding systems are elaborate. Holy crap.
Yeah, well, it's elaborate on your bank account too.
Yeah, look at that one.
Yeah.
That's $12 just in bolts.
Yeah. No.
Hey, Ian, Dan.
More than
again
that
here,
if it's stainless.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dan. There's a
Okay,
cool one. Go ahead, Dan.
I thought I heard somebody else in there, but I got a story about that. The one that Leo was talking about, this Wolf River Coils take it along antenna. I also have one of those too that I use right now up in Sebring. for HF. And first time I ever set it up, I was showing, my girlfriend Kim, kind of showing her a little bit about it. Okay, this is one type of antenna, kind of explaining to her about different types of antennas, and set it up in the backyard. And she was, she's like, well, how far, can you talk with this? And I don't remember what contest it was or whatever. Anyway, it was on a contest weekend. And I said, well, I'm not sure how far we're going to, get here, but we'll see what we can hear. So anyway, made a couple of contacts and talked to Washington State and Ontario, Canada. So I kind of looked over at Kim and I smiled and I said, was that far enough for you? Clear across, as far west in the United States as you could get, northwest, Washington State, and then Canada. So straight up the seaboard, and then out west there. So she thought that was pretty cool, from a little antenna in the backyard set up by the swimming pool. So that's
not bad.
They'll reach out and touch. I mean, you can get out there with them. So that was kind of fun.
Yep. Yeah, I will verify that. I've gotten Slovenia, Finland, Sweden, most of the Caribbean states, Venezuela, Cuba. Just off that mine is the portable vertical. He's talking about the TIA, which is a more backpack portable. So if you want to do hiking and get up high and, mountains, et cetera, in the woods, whatever, it's a little bit lighter, a little less cumbersome. It breaks down into smaller pieces, but, both options are available. They're pretty robust. They're made out of stainless steel and aluminum tubing. Check them out. And if you want to see one, let me know. I'll let you know what I have down here with me.
All right. Anybody else? Anything on trap verticals?
If anybody's interested in the Wolf River coil, is going to field day tomorrow. I'll have one there.
And I just posted a link in the chat window for Wolf River coils. Now, I have no affiliation with them, but I use their product. I believe in it. It works well for me. It may not work well for you. Your mileage may vary. That's all I can say.
And I've got the last slide of the slideshow is come to Winter Field Day, because we're demonstrating all these out there. I mean, we literally, I think we'll probably have 5, 6, maybe even as many as 7 or 8 different kinds of antennas out there. So, Robert, did you have something? You're muted. Which was the phrase for 2020, by the way.
Yeah. Okay.
Can you hear me? Yeah, we got you now, Robert. Go ahead.
A ICOM 7100, and I have a gap DX Titan antenna up about 35 feet. I'm getting a lot of noise, and I understand that verticals do produce a lot of noise. Is there any way that I can reduce that noise? It's a 9-band antenna.
Somebody want to take that?
How many radials you got, Robert?
I'm sorry?
How many radials you got?
I have just ICOM 7100.
No, not radios. How many radials off the antenna?
Ground radials.
The Gap Titan doesn't require radios, but it's got that loop of wire.
Okay, well that would make it noisy. Okay.
It just uses counterpoise.
Yes, you're using the cable as the counterpoise, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why you don't need to. How much cable you got?
I'm sorry.
How long is your coax cable?
Probably 60 feet.
Okay. How much is outside on the ground?
It's laying on the ground right now, and I've got to get it up off the ground and attached to the house.
Well, see, antennas that don't have counterpoises, you will use the coax as a counterpoise. You probably need at least 25 feet laying on the ground or in the ground, probably to do better, I'm guessing, off the top of my head, because usually that's one of the problems you run into with the verticals with no radials, because you're not getting good ground. Just be a guess. I mean, you could try it one way or another, but that might explain your excess noise.
The other thing I did, and I found I had noise too, I made sure that I ran my antenna connection as it comes in the house through a ground connection. In other words, your coax is grounded. Of course, I could talk about the common point ground plane and all that, but that's another discussion for another day. But the idea is you're grounded as you enter the house, and then on the other side of that, I put a common mode choke. So see if try that and see if that helps you.
Okay.
Yeah, this is Leo KC1 FLU, known down here as Leo 1. You might want to check and make sure that your mounting points for the ground side of your Titan DX are clean. Any corrosion, etc. Just go out there with a little bit of sandpaper and some dielectric grease. Do a little quick tune-up on that and make sure that you have a good path to ground at the base of the antenna. Because like I said, it being a non-ground radio required antenna is going to use the stake in the ground as your ground point for the base of your antenna. Now, if you have bad soil conditions, sandy soil, yeah, okay, maybe, but it's been awful kind of dry down here. So unless you're watering a lot, you're not getting a good electrical conductivity. So you might want to throw out a couple of extra wires and just make sure those contacts are in good shape. That's all. The only thing I can suggest. Simple and quick and easy.
Okay. I've got a journey to work on.
Well, let's hope the journey is a short trip.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to the next one here, the magnetic loop. I had this one recommended by several people, and these come in all shapes and sizes from any frequency you want, from one this big all the way up to one as big as your house. And I've seen some examples. It's hard to put pictures up here of all the different things because some things it's just hard to take a picture of. But you can see in the upper right there, that's actually a loop that's just made out of a long piece of wire, and it's made into a square, and it's got four basically the isolators that hold it out and into a square. And that's a form of a loop antenna as well. And then you see some other loop antennas here as well. I know they're used also a lot with VHF and UHF, I believe as well. I saw some stuff. So who would like to speak on loop antennas? Has anybody used those?
The antenna to your, go ahead.
I have the one on the upper right-hand corner, a square loop in the backyard, 80 meters. It's 260 some feet, 65 feet on each side, and I tune it. I run it on 80 straight, but I tune it to the other bands, so I can tune it on 5 bands.
Yeah.
Nice.
Also known as the loop skywire. You can also feed it with 450 ohm lead.
Yeah, I'm feeding it with coax straight out of my tuner, and I've got it at 20 feet elevation.
Yeah.
And that's basically, I mean, the dimensions you just said, 60 feet-ish, 65 feet on each side. That's basically like the wire I have now is about 65 feet on each side. So it's kind of like basically two wire antennas into a square. Except, what is it? You've got one whole side is the positive side, and one whole side is the negative side, I guess. Yeah, and then it's isolated on the back end. All right, I see how they got that.
This is a loop. This is a continuous loop, was what this is.
Oh, it is a that's what I was wondering, if it's contiguous or if there's an actual break on the other end.
No, there are no breaks. The only break is where you're at your feed point. And you go through that loop and back, say from your center of your cable or one side of your 450 ohm lead, but it's a continuous loop. There's no break there.
So as fancy as this looks, there's really nothing fancy to make in something like that.
Absolutely nothing. Yeah, I mean, you can, that's one of the cheapest antennas you can make. It doesn't cost you anything. The biggest cost.
And it gives you a lot of surface area to receive. I would think it would work pretty good.
You have to have stuff in the appropriate locations to tie it to.
And those things are very quiet.
Yeah, and I have a friend in Orlando, WA4NFY, who has one of these up, and he's got a remote control switch at the far end, and he can open up that loop. and tune it to 160.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
All right.
I'm starting to realize 160 is a challenge band. It really is. I mean,
Yeah,
just most of the stuff just does. It's not set up for 160. It's
That's
just
right.
not.
It's just above the AM broadcast band. I was listening to a little bit of 160 last night with my 80-meter antenna. So you can hear things on there, but I didn't try to transmit it. You get like at least a 2 to 1.
Well, I know the other night I was up about 1 a.m. I like to tune around late at night, and about 1 a.m. I tuned to the FT8 frequency on it on 160, and there was people talking to each other on there. I was kind of disappointed that I don't want to mess my radio up and try to talk to them because I can't get a good SWR. But anyway, there is actually FT8 traffic up there. All right.
Does anybody have any of those antenna, those loop antennas that you shown in the pictures? Yeah, the commercial ones as opposed to the one that you make yourself. Does anybody have any experience with those?
I'll make a comment about the loops too. There's a difference between the loop that Dave WG4K has, which is the wire loop on the upper right there,
right,
and the magnetic loops that you're seeing down below. The
Yeah.
magnetic loops that you're seeing, particularly the bottom left one, for example, there's a capacitor in that little box, and it's like a tuner for all intents and purposes, so you can tune. Your coax would hook to that little loop. I've actually made my own. And the other, I think it was 2 weeks ago, I was out in my front yard running 20 watts, and I talked about 1,200 miles away on 20 meters. The issue with them is you have to have enough capacity, a strong enough, I'll use the word strong for right now, a strong enough capacitor in your box to take the high wattage, because you're talking thousands of volts if you're running 100 watts through this, and you'll get yourself lit up.
You'll need
The
a
nice thing about these little antennas, though, is you can set them up very quickly on a table next to you if you're running low power, and they're directional. So if you have noise coming off one side or the other, you can just turn them just a little bit and get rid of the noise. So I play with these a lot. I've actually built a couple of them, and they're pretty fun to play with, but they're not highly efficient, right? They're a compromise for sure.
And they're very narrow bandwidth too.
Yes, extremely narrow, small little loop, much more narrow. Absolutely.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. This is good input.
All right. The next one is last call for the wire loop or mag loop antenna. All right. The next one, I know a couple of guys that have this one in the club. We're talking about the end fed. This one seems like it would be good if you had an application where you could put a wire way out, just one wire way out somewhere. Who is using an end fed out there wants to talk about this?
I'm running end fed half wave here. And
okay, and how's that one working?
Okay, it works very well. Now the way to look at an end fed halfway is to look at it as kind of like a dipole. The difference is that instead of feeding it in the middle, you're feeding it on the end. Well, you're feeding it not at the 50 ohm point, but at like 2,500 ohms. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to use a 49-to-1 auto transformer, which there's a guy that named Steve Ellington on YouTube who has videos. So I'd recommend you look at those. I'm using the My Antennas commercial model. Now, the beauty of these things, I love this antenna. And one of the big reasons, and it has no traps in it at all. It's just a straight 130-foot piece of wire out of the 49-to-1 auto transformer. I run 100 and some feet of cable around the house to it. But the guys up in Atlanta that I talk to frequently tell me I've got the loudest signal in the whole net. We talk, a bunch of us get together, a bunch of them are around Atlanta, and I'm of course here at Fort Myers, and I talk on that thing, and they tell me I'm one of the loudest signals there, and even though they're 600 miles away. So it's a good antenna, And the beauty of these end-fed antennas, this one you're showing here has traps in it, and I'm not sure why, because this thing.
It's because it's the graphic I chose. I mean, like
That's
I
okay.
said, I'm pleading ignorance here on some of this stuff. I
It's
don't.
all right. It's a springboard for discussion. But this thing, the beauty of it, you can't feed, if you go and feed a center fed dipole, say on 80 meters at 40, you're going to get extremely high. You're going to get your SWR because your impedance point at the center is going to be way up in the stratosphere. Well, instead of doing it there and you feed it at the end, it's so what? You got an auto transformer, and you can feed even and odd harmonics. So I can use this antenna on 80, 40, 20, 15, and 10, all with no tuner, and
Wow.
same antenna. So, and that's probably pretty neat to be able to jump from 80 to 40 to 20 and not have to change antennas. The other thing is you can tune the, I can use it to a limited extent on 12, 17, and 30. But you have to use the tuner in the radio. Now, most radio antenna tuners will handle a 3-to-1 SWR with no problem. So I have a external tuner as well, which will take me up to 10-to-1 SWR if I need it. About the only place I've ever needed that is at the upper part of the 75 meter band. Now, last night I used it and didn't need to tune it, but I've changed my antenna, moving from next door over to here. So we've got a couple of coils in it and everything else, but they heard me just fine. That's the point of the antenna. If it radiates, it's good. So that's all I got to say.
A comment
Right.
about the end-feds there, Ian.
Yep, KC1 FLU. I will second that. I'm running an end-fed at the shack up at the QTH up in Pennsylvania, and right now I've got the 40 through 10 up there, and absolutely the height of the feed point doesn't matter. I've got it about 10 foot off the ground on one of the posts on the deck, and I've got it almost vertical, believe it or not, because of the trees that are close enough to the house. This thing's probably up about 80 degrees, so it's pretty straight up, and yeah, no problem.
Oh yeah.
Talk to everybody, man. I mean, clear as a bell. It's almost like making a phone call, to be honest with you.
It's nice and quiet. That's
Yeah, and exactly right. The auto tuner I've got an FTDX 1200 and an 897 Delta, and the internal tuners in both of those radios, they will tune within less than 3 seconds to that particular antenna. And when I was in New Hampshire on that antenna up there, that was the long wire at 165 footer. They would take about 3.5, 4 seconds to tune it up, but they would tune it up, and that one wasn't vertical, obviously, because it didn't have a 160-foot tree. But yeah, that was running an NVIS sort of situation.
This one's good.
Beautiful into Europe. If you want to make European contacts, that was the way to go with that antenna. It run it horizontal.
And one of the contests last year with it, I talked to Slovenia. I talked to a guy in Italy during field day. So
Yep.
does it.
Yep, Slovenia, Italy, Eastern Europe. I had no problem with. My problem was the wave seemed to be too long for my QTH in New Hampshire. I couldn't get to like Spain and Portugal. It would like jump. It would seem to jump over those countries. But now that I've moved down to Pennsylvania, I'm hitting Spain and Portugal and the Canary Islands and all of Western Europe without a problem now. France and Germany and everything.
Are you running a commercially made antenna, or did you build it yourself?
No, I'm running a commercial built. One of the MFJ 1984s and 1986s.
Really?
What they call the mid power. So it says it'll handle up to 300 watts. I don't have an amp. I run barefoot, and I never run my rig. Either one of them, I never run over 90 watts. Maybe I'll push 95 if I'm trying to get through a pileup in a contest for 13 colonies. But other than that, I generally keep it between 50 and 75.
That's basically what I do. I'm running my antennas 1080 LP, the low power one, which is supposedly rated at 200 watts. I've never had any problems with it. It's just fine.
Yeah, no, the end-feds are great. They're made out of, I think, 22 gauge black THHN wire. They throw up into a tree real fast and easy. You can drape them up over top of a palm tree to make an inverted V or a inverted L if you want to.
Yeah, and go hit your Florida State Parks contest, hit the Parks on the Air contest. You know, they pack into a zippered pack that you would get your sheets at, you know, the store. If you go to Walmart or Bed Bath and Beyond, all the sheets come in those little zippered clear plastic pouches. Hold on to those, coil your antenna up and put those in there. It keeps it nice and neat, and so you don't have a whole bunch of tangled wire.
Sounds
All
good.
right. And before we move on, I want to go to John. John had something.
Okay, so they purchase commercial made. I make these homemade all the time. I prefer, just for me, this is my preference, is I go with the 9-to-1 Unen, and I use an end fed that'll do 40 through 10, and it's only 29 feet long. And my one that does a better job going to 80 is 40. They recommend 43, but for my configuration, for some reason, it works better at 41. The other thing you can consider to do with these end feds with the 9-to-1, for example, so what it means is that the feed line at the end there, well, the wire is going to be 450 ohms. So you're using 9-to-1 to drop it to 50. So you can use your coax. Your coax becomes part of your counterpoise, and you recommended to have 25 feet on the ground of that, and then run some ferrites or something along it when it gets close to your radio, just in case you get any RF running back on you. But it's pretty easy to put up. But if you had to do it at your house, for example, there are guys that have done it where they run the antenna wire underneath the eave, for example, and then run about 40 feet off of the ground along the bottom of their house, around their house. And it'll kind of, you can see it kind of makes a dipole that way, and they're able to use it. I will tell you with my 9-to-1 Unen, I do not even have to use my internal tuner if I don't want to, and I can go, like I say, 10 through 80. Every once in a while, the work bands like 12, sometimes you have to use it. But again, the internal tuner has no trouble dealing with it because it's usually less than 3-to-1. So, and I make my own. I wrap my own toroids and everything.
Dave, quick question for you. This is Leo KC1FLU. Are you running quarter wave or half wave lengths for your antennas? Did you say quarter wave?
If you're talking to me, Leo, I use random, completely random off.
He's running around the random thing. I know what you're talking about. That's the 9-to-1. That's kind of like
okay.
The antenna. Yeah, I know what that is.
I gotcha.
I haven't had as much luck with those as I've had with these, but that's, each ham has his own mind, and does.
If you've been to field day when I've been out there, I run that antenna right there at the field day.
Yeah. Okay.
Another antenna you'll get to see at field day. I'm trying, John. I'm trying to get everybody there, I swear. Okay. Let's see. The next one is the 6-band HF center loaded off-center fed dipole antenna. We're talking about the off-center fed dipole antenna here. And who would like to start us off on this one? Yeah, you're right. This one sucks.
Well, no, I'll say something.
I'm totally kidding. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. A lot of guys run a similar antenna to this. The G5 RVs are similar to this. There's a whole bunch of them out there. The Carolina Wyndham's similar to this.
And I got that one coming up.
Fed. It's just changing the feed point, which what Rick talked about earlier was changing the impedance. So you're changing the impedance by the links, and you're making adjustments to that. And there's your Carolina Wyndham, which you have up there. The difference between this one is, look, it's got really 2 ballons, right? It's got a 4-to-1 ballon up higher, and you got a line insulator or choke, if you want to call it.
Yeah.
But you got to get that 25 feet or so of, well, they're using RG58. I've only seen them done with ladder line. So I've seen them use the ladder line to come down and then around. I know a guy in the club runs one of these.
Okay. Anything else on the off center fed dipole, or the New Carolina Wyndham? These were both mentioned by one person each on the net that they were using these as well. Like I said,
yes, Ian, the Carolina Wyndham. You can actually use your aluminum gutters on your house to make an off-center fed Carolina Wyndham if you want to. There's a guy out there. November 6 Charlie is his call sign. He's got an n6cc.com website, and he does stealth HOA antennas. And one of the things he does is he loads up his aluminum 80-foot gutters and a 17-foot aluminum canoe on top of his truck. Go check out the website. It's
Oh, wow.
comical. It's comical, but
And
it works.
And we're
It
going to get
works.
into all that in the next segment. We're definitely going to get into all that here in the next segment, where we're going to talk about gutters, because there's a few things in there on that. All right. Anything else on either the off center fed dipole or the Carolina Wyndham? All right, we're going to keep moving here. The next thing we're going to start, or the last thing I want to mention is there's two other kinds of omnidirectional antennas that aren't used as much for HF, so we're not going to spend a lot of time on them tonight. And those are your ground plane and your J-pole antennas. Just put them in here so we don't miss them. Now we're going to talk about directional antennas. Directional antennas have the pattern on the right there, as my wife calls it, the Tweety bird pattern. I guess it does look like Tweety bird from the back. I don't know, but anyway, so there you go. That's the pattern for a Yagi right there. And well, let's talk about the Yagi. My favorite antenna, of course, is the Yagi, and I've built about 100 of these for, and that's an exaggeration. I've built about 15 of these for VHF and UHF, and I love building Yagis, but I haven't built one yet for HF. So I'd like to throw this out there, and for anybody who'd like to talk about using the Yagi design for HF. All right, so you just basically point it, and there you go. I will tell you that, you know, what I learned about Yagis is just this. They're, for every bit of a pain in the butt that they are to build and hang and make work and spin and everything else, boy, you get it all back in gain. Oh, boy. I love me some Yagi. All right, well, enough said. Everybody knows about these. We don't need to spend a lot of time here. But I think we're going to see at least one of these tomorrow at Field Day as well. I think it's going to be on our tower trailer, right? I think that's what we're using on a tower trailer, is a trap vertical or a trap Yagi, something like that. Anyway, this is another one we're not going to spend a lot of time on, but this was mentioned by someone that's working up there with the long periodic antenna, which is kind of cool. It's basically a Yagi, but each of the
Elements.
what do you want to call it? Each of the elements are graduated in size, and so I just wanted to mention that in there. But again, I don't think this one's used a whole lot with HF. This one is the one that's probably got my biggest interest right now, because you know me, I'm a directional antenna guy. I want to build this or buy this and throw it up on top of my antenna, and I want to be able to spin this thing around, because doing FT8, I want to be able to see, if I see a guy in Japan, I want to be able to spin this thing and aim it right at him, you know. And right now I'm just shooting it up in the air, and you know, it's kind of, I'm in military terms, I'm using spray and pray, and I would much rather be directional here, where I can try to work one section or work this area, or try to get it to go where I need it to go. So this is what I've been looking at. So I'm anxious to hear what the panel tonight has to say about the hex beam. Who would like to go first? Is anybody using this?
I know somebody who's using one of these, and of course,
We'll count that. Go ahead.
Okay. Now, he said, now you can buy these if you go out and get a kit or buy one of these, that you can get them like 20 through 10 meters, or you get to 20 through 6 meters. The guy that really manufacturers says that you're better off with the 20 through 10 meter model, because the 6 meter seems to detract a bit from everything else. I don't know why that is, but your best bet is to go with 20 through 10. In other words, 20, 17, 15, 12, and 10 meters, and you get real good results that way. Now, this is an antenna that I've considered putting up myself. So it's, I don't know if I'm going to do one or not, but as the sunspot cycle picks back up, the directionality would be a great help. And you do not need the size rotator that you would need with, say, one of your big TH6DXX, or what's the other, not Force 12, I'm trying to think, what are the other big beam, there's just a number of them out there, but you don't need a ham M to run one of these, just an overgrown, the least expensive, not the least expensive rotors, but you don't need this bigger rotor. So there's a lot of stuff on the web about these.
What is the overall diameter for what we're looking at right here for a point to point for a 40-meter antenna?
The 40-meter version, which is big, it's 42 foot across.
Yeah.
42 feet. The 20-meter would be about half of that, so about 21 feet across. If you just go with the one that goes up to 20. If you want to build one that goes up to 80, that's going to be about 84 feet across.
Oh, I'm gonna have to buy the neighbor's property to do that.
Yeah, what's that?
Yeah, I mean,
I've only got an acre and a half now. I don't have the 6 acres I used to.
Yeah. What's that great big upside down umbrella thing you got up, you know?
That's what it looks like as you're out in the wind with your umbrella and it got ripped off.
You're right. You're right. It does.
Yeah, and I can also make a few sci-fi references too. I mean, it looks like a few ships I think we fought at some point in the Federation. I'm not sure, but yeah. So I like this one. I want to try this one because I want to get into directional stuff, and I don't know. I just think this could be the best of both worlds for daytime stuff. It's not going to do much for you at night.
No.
Unless you at least maybe if you get the 40 one, I guess. But
plus 20's open at night, which can be sometime.
Yeah.
KD0 VMM Bruce, I'm up in Missouri. I use one of these. I bought commercially, and my Elmer uses one that he built himself. Both of us really like them.
Yeah.
Very nice.
What are you using for rotators?
I've just got a cheap TV rotator.
Yeah. I'm not surprised.
I can't believe it weighs that much.
I don't think it weighs very much at all. Maybe with that 40 meters on it, it would bring the weight up another 20 pounds.
Yeah, and the other nice thing about it is it's a fairly balanced load sitting up there too.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And I've got a small home, and it might take up a third of the roof space up there, but nothing else is up there.
It's sky. We got to do something with it.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's mine.
How high above the ground does it have to be directional?
I would like it to be up higher than what it is. It's only up maybe 20 feet, but it's directional. It works.
Yeah.
I'd like it to, like all of us, we want it to be up higher.
Yeah. I think they say that you can put them 20, 25 feet above the ground and you've got good directionality and it works well. Your optimum height, I think, is 40, 45 feet, but that's a little harder to do.
Right. And if I would go that high, I would want a better rotator for it also. Yeah. So in case it would break, I wouldn't have to climb up there.
Yeah, I believe that.
All
right, last call on the hex beam.
Amen.
Go ahead.
All right. The next one I want to talk about is something I know absolutely nothing about. I haven't even read about it yet, but this was recommended by several people. It's the Moxon antenna. I guess that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
And it's basically just a rectangle. There you go. Has anybody got any experience with these? I even think I have another set of slides. There we go.
There you go.
That's kind of your setup there.
I didn't know you could do that with those.
I wish they wouldn't put all those European measurements on there.
Yeah, then you have to either get out the calculator or try to do the arithmetic.
Yeah. Actually, I don't mind converting it. I just like to complain. All right. So there you go. I don't know anything about these either, but this is something else to maybe look into.
I would think that would work equivalent. You could probably do a 5 element and it would work equivalent probably to the hex beam. Just my guess.
All
Believe it or
right.
not, they're all dipoles.
Yeah, it's all kind of it's all a whole different, it's basically just a different configuration on the same basic design.
Yeah.
All right, now the next section of the night, we're going to be taking a deep dive into how to hide your antenna from your condo, Karen. And this is probably the most important part of our discussion tonight, because the only thing that ruins propagation more than the atmosphere is Karens. So anyway, if you have a large group of Karens, that's called a homeowners association. So, okay.
Wow.
Basically what we're going to do now is I want you guys to impart all of your knowledge on helping people get their antennas up there when they're not really supposed to put their antennas up there. The first one, and probably most popular, I think I had 7 different people using the flagpole antenna. Some were built, some were homebrewed, and others were purchased. You can buy this as an entire kit and install it in the ground, and the wire comes out underneath the ground and can go in, and you go out and bury it at 2 in the morning when Karen's asleep. If your wife's named Karen,
I use
sorry,
a flagpole. I use a flagpole, KC1FLU. I use a flagpole for my 2 meter 70 centimeter stuff here. I use a collapsible flagpole that I bought at Harbor Freight, and I put the stick on the very top of it, and I hang a American flag off of it, and no one says anything in the neighborhood.
It's fallen out of favor to give people a hard time about flagpoles right now. And many places will let you put a flagpole up when they won't let you put anything else up. So this is a great option.
Absolutely.
And if they tell you no, then you just start. You can imagine what kind of stink you can make. What, are you not a patriot? It's a flagpole.
Now there's court cases on this. That's why they can't stop them. They can still make you get approval, but they can't stop them.
Yeah, it's a state
So
law.
when all else fails, I mean, this might be an option for you. The hardest part you're going to have literally is going out there at night and burying your lineup or whatever, so that the yard people don't see it. But this is definitely a good option. And the diagram here, this one actually shows a pretty in-depth one here, where they actually have got a coil in there, and it's for HF and the whole bit. So I don't know, but there's a lot of people using these. They seem to be the way to go. The next one.
Yeah, and if they ask what the wire is for, just tell them it's for lightning protection. It's a path to ground for lightning protection.
Oh, there you go. That's
lightning arrestor.
There you go. Because we wouldn't want lightning.
You do have to put up a radial field though for those flagpoles.
Oh, you put some radials out?
Yeah, about 12 of them.
Oh, wow.
This is KJ4 Whiskey Papa Victor. I have a flagpole antenna in my front yard for UHF, VHF.
And it works good for you?
Oh, works fantastic. It's up about 30 feet, and it's, I can hit Naples, and I get way out to even DeSoto County. I can really go a long ways with it.
Yeah, I've got my flagpole. I've got a Diamond X50 on top of it with the non-ground plane 3 radios that came from the factory, and I can hit Clewiston on about 45 watts from here. So all the way out to Big Lake Amateur Radio Club out there, I can pop all those, and I can get up over Port Charlotte and down into Naples fusion stuff with no issues whatsoever.
Yeah, I'm running with the Diamond X50A also.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you've got a little money to put in the project, this flagpole antenna, it might be the way to go with the least amount of hassle, depending on what you're trying to do. The next one is the attic mounted antenna. I am surprised the number of people running Yagis in their attic to get to local VHF repeaters. A lot of people, 3 or 4 people just put their hand up. I know it's, I was kind of surprised. There's a guy I talked to up in Punta Gorda, and he had an array of antennas up there, and they just re-roofed his condo, and they went to metal roofs.
Oh, great.
He's done.
No. He's not done. He's actually in really, really good shape.
Really?
My QTH up in New Hampshire, we put a standing seam metal roof on that house. And what I did was pass the wire out the eaves and I loaded up the metal roof panels. And I used the roof
Okay.
as a flat directional radiator.
Yeah.
Well, not flat, but on a 45-degree pitch angle. Unfortunately, the only access I had at pointed east all I could get was Europe, but I got to Europe on 100 watts. 90 watts, but yeah, it works. Take advantage of the metal roof panels. What's that?
Why don't you install a rudder?
What, rotate my house?
No, what you do is you hook up the roof on all four sides and you put a 4-way antenna switch in.
Oh, sure. Now you tell me after I sell the place and move to Pennsylvania. Thanks a lot, guys. It could have saved me a lot of hassle. 27,000 pounds of stuff on a moving truck.
Oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Just use the metal roof as your antenna.
You could actually have a phased array.
Folks,
You're right. You know what? You are absolutely right with that. Yeah. So fear not, metal roof owners.
Well, there you go. And I also was surprised the number of people that told me that they have very little signal loss caused by the non-conductive roof components. That there really is none. They're shooting it out. They're getting just about as good as if they put it out in the yard. So that's kind of surprising, but that's nice.
Does that include a concrete roof tiles? There are no problems with that, no loss with a concrete roof tiles?
No, I don't think so. I mean, any density, you're going to have a slight amount, but we're talking little bits.
No kidding.
I can speak to that. I put a lot of ag antennas in, everything from VHF, UHF to HF. And I've done HF. I like fan dipoles on HF in the attic because you can spin them all over the place. David over in Gateway, I helped him do a 40-20. I don't know if we did 40-20-10. I can't remember what we did, but he had the tile roof and it was fine. The only thing you got to watch out for when you put it in an attic, well, there's lots of things to worry about, like don't fall through. But for the antenna, you got to make sure it doesn't have that foil-looking vapor barrier on it. That foil's bad news. That will cut you down. And you can't do like in Leo's case, use it for a ground plane. It doesn't work like that because obviously it's that thin stuff on the inside.
Yeah, you can't put a screw into that stuff. No way, John.
No. The other bad thing about the attic, just be honest with you, is obviously if it's low, it's hard to work up there. And in Florida, it's so cool up there in August, right, that in the morning it's misery. And I've done attic antennas in August. It's tough. But what I'm saying is the nice thing about using a fan in the attic, if you're going to do HF, is you can wind it all around up there, provided you can move around, provided it's got enough height for you to move around. That's really the key. And then you just got to tune it up, and that takes 2 people.
All right. Yeah. And I noticed the upper left picture there. That's actually a loop that they've got up there. I mean, you can put any of these antennas that we've showed from the simple dipole all the way up to a loop or anything up there, really.
Yeah, it looks like a loop of copper tubing that you could just grab at Home Depot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, remember, guys, just keep it simple. Field expedient antennas. Have fun, play around. That's why we all do this, right?
That's it. All right. And then the next one, gutter mounting. In this case here in the upper left picture, what they're doing is they're replacing one piece of the downspout with a piece of plastic downspout. So that way the uprights or the downspouts are not charged. And then, of course, it's mounted to the wood all the way around the house. So they're basically just loading up the actual gutter itself is what they're doing here. And that's basically what they're showing there is they got a piece of plastic to go in there so that the downspouts are not charged, basically.
So, I got another comment about the one on the right, the broadband butterfly.
Yeah.
So Artist Kitchens and Artist wanted to do this at his house, and unfortunately we haven't had a chance to hook it up yet, but he wanted to try this, and we went ahead and ran the wire all the way around, and he got the 1,000 ohm resistors. We're kind of interested to see how this works. This is actually wire underneath your overhang, your eaves. And his eaves happen to be that, I think it's that vinyl stuff. So that might be a way to do it. But we haven't tried it yet. Like I say, it's been kind of hard to connect up together to get it taken care of. But we are looking at doing something like that, so that should be interesting.
Yeah, Ian, that picture that you have on the upper left and the lower right of that screen, that actually comes from that gentleman that I mentioned before at November6CharlieCharlie.com. He does a lot of HOA stealth antennas and long wire antennas, a lot of CW low power work. His website is pretty informative for folks that want to hide an antenna from the HOAs. That you might want to also get yourself a copy of the Marine Corps radio manual. It will tell you how to build all kinds of crazy simple wire antennas and throw them up in trees and hide stuff. And, hey, just remember, don't draw attention to yourself. It tends to tick off those in the foxhole next to you. So,
You trick the enemy, in this case, the homeowner association. That's pretty good.
you got that right. Absolutely right. I mean, they have nothing better to do than to tell you what to do.
Right.
The enemy is Karen, and she doesn't eat and she doesn't sleep. She's outside your home right now with a clipboard.
I used to live in an apartment up in Atlanta, and I didn't have any way. There were no trees around this apartment, and there was no way to put up an antenna. So I got up at 3:30 in the morning and got a fishing pole and threw a sinker over the roof and pulled over a about 35, 40 foot piece of number 26 telephone wire that was the same color as the roof. They never did find that antenna.
Yeah, and I will mention that you can paint wire, but you just have to make sure that you're not using a paint that has metallic in it.
Yeah,
Because
that's right.
if you paint something the same color as what you're putting it up against, you won't even see it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the roof mounted antenna, and there's just a couple of examples here of some different roof mounted type antennas. The one there on the upper left is a tile roof where they basically just have it laying right on the tiles. And then some different ones there where they're using like a little standoffs basically to bring it above the surface of the roof there. But some different ideas there. And then this is some other crazy ideas I found. The upper left one here, the guy's got it on a swing arm, kind of like the gate at an old military checkpoint. And when he wants to go on to HF, he just walks out there and stands it upright, and he talks on the HF. And as soon as he's done, he walks out there and just lays it back down again. And that's all that is. The upper right is actually a loop antenna that's stuck on somebody's wall inside their house. And that works as long as you don't have cheap PC speakers anywhere around. And there's another one there where you can do the same loop basic setup on the ceiling in your home too. You could try that. If you can't even get in your attic, maybe you can't even get in your attic, you could literally just with thumbtacks tack up some really thin wire inside and just irradiate the heck out of yourself. And then the lower right down there, you can barely see. There's actually a product they sell that is, they call it sock, camo sock. And you feed the wire through the camo sock and it lays on the ground and the leaves cover it up and you can't see the wire anymore. It's pretty cool, but it's called camo sock. And then the left two pictures, these are both small antennas that were painted the same color to match the tree or whatever else is around. And then they were literally mounted in a tree. So that's just some different ideas there. Does anybody have any comments on any of these or some other ideas that are similar?
Well, yes, I have an antenna. That's the one that, every time I'm using it, I got to go outside and shove it in the ground. And then when I'm finished, I got to go back and take it out. So that's why I'm not on the net all the time, because, sometimes during the day, depends who's driving around. And because I'm trying to put it up as high as I can. So I go up sometimes like 25 feet with the tip sticking above the roof line, and it does reflect, and you can see it, even though I put it on the side of the house as close as possible, but so far I've had it now for a little over a month. No one has bothered me. Okay. But I found out that with most HOAs, at least that's the way it is with mine as well. And I found out that with most HOAs, if the antenna is a temporary fixture, then it's classified as let's say, in the same way as your Christmas decorations. It's there only for a while. And if you go in and take it down, in some instances, even if you take it down once or twice a month, you'll be able to get away with it. And for the rest of the time, you can keep it up. I'm kind of building my nerve, because as the time goes on, I'm going to try and keep it up for a longer and a longer and a longer time, and see how long I can get away with it by keeping it up. But right now, I'm keeping it coy. And by the way, it works fantastic. I bought one of those that, I paid actually $100. It's like a pole that you have clips, and it just slides up, and you slide it back up, and it works great.
You're like a push-up
Yeah.
pole.
Yeah.
You can
That's
also
cool.
do.
Yeah.
You can also run what they call a flower pot antenna. You disguise it in a flower pot on your balcony or out on your lanai, and just put some plastic plants, wrapped around your antenna feed going up, and it looks like a vine growing up in the air. Put a little plastic trellis there so it looks like the vine is climbing up and your antenna is hidden inside of it. Or if you want a roll-up J-pole, there's several plans out on the internet to use coax, or either coax or parallel line. Not necessarily, well, you can do it with 450, but there's a guy out there, Ed Fong, F-O-N-G. Check out his plans. He's got some simple stuff that'll connect up to HTs through BNC connectors, little soldering skills and some wire and some heat shrink. Make a real nice antenna that radiates very well for only a couple of bucks on your end.
Yeah, and some other things here that I found. Weather vane, if you're allowed to have one of those, it can be an antenna.
Yeah.
Another thing, DirecTV antennas, they have to be allowed now. They have to give you space for Sky for DirecTV now. So, but sometimes they'll give you like a group antenna or whatever, but that might be an avenue. If you've got a DirecTV dish outside your building, you can put your antenna on the back of it and nobody would ever notice. There's some other ones here. The lower left looks like a clothesline, doesn't it? Or is it a hex vertical or whatever it is, a hex beam? Who knows? But yeah, you could build something like that. And then of course, there's your two planters you were just talking about.
Yep. There's the flower pots, right? Yeah.
There's your flower pots. Basically what he did was he painted the antenna green and then let a vine grow up it or whatever.
Hey, Ian?
Yeah.
Or even just use plastic vine.
Yeah, check out the website of W6NBC. He's written numerous articles in QST, and one of the things he likes to do is build a slot antenna. And he built one out of a DirecTV dish, particularly one of the oblong ones. I've got one of those here, but I didn't build the antenna. But you cut a slot in the antenna dish, in the satellite dish, and it's a horizontal slot, but of course it's a vertically polarized antenna. Works great on 2 meters.
Oh, wow. Now there's an idea.
W6NBC is the guy's call.
Yeah, I've actually pulled it up. I'm going to look at it afterwards. I've got like 7 sites you guys have given me. I just pull them up over here on a tab so I can look at them later and add it to the information for tonight. Also on this one, there's like a flower pot. You could put your little quarter wave in your little flower pot and just run a little wire up and run it in the house.
Like a hummingbird feeder.
Do what?
Hummingbird feeder.
Yeah, hummingbird feeders. There's one of those there. You can do that with that. And then the lower right one there, that's John's van. I put that up there so that you guys could see that. No, that's not John's van. I'm just kidding. But the reason I put that van there, this is something a lot of people haven't thought about. You can put an antenna on your car and then just run the wire into your house. And now you've got a ground plane and an antenna sitting out there, and the HOA can't say nothing about it. Just thinking. All right.
Well, yeah, KC1FLU here. That's what I mentioned about that one gentleman out there. He uses a 17-foot aluminum canoe on the roof of his little Jeep and runs a wire inside his house, and it transmits just fine.
Yeah. So there is literally a lot of options here. There's some other ones here. You know those aluminum crutches that you get from the hospital every time you sprain your ankle? They make a great 6-meter antenna. And or you could use 2 light bulbs, or maybe the tops off of 2 barbecue grills. Any of that stuff will make an antenna too. So I just wanted to put that stuff out there. And this is the button I'm getting that my wife's going to make me wear, because she thinks I'm running an antenna farm here. She calls it an aluminum farm.
Yeah.
But anyway, just thought I'd share that stuff with you there. And there you go. It's the end. Please tip your waiter. And stay around, because tomorrow night we're serving veal. And that's about it, guys. Field days tomorrow.
Can I make a comment before you take off?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Okay, just one last thing. One of the things, and I was talking to you about this the other day, Ian, as somebody who plays with antennas all the time, I'm just going to throw this out to you guys. I don't care if you buy Times Microwave LMR 400 or you buy the crap antenna cable. You know, always test your cable before you use it. You know, in other words, put a dummy load on one end, throw your tuner, throw your radio on the other that has an SWR meter in it, or a tuner, an antenna tuner, because I've run into more problems helping people put antennas up, including myself, with brand new cable that was already like 1.4 to 1. So you're already starting off on a bad foot, and it's usually because the cable's kind of crummy. You might think it's the best that's ever out there. By the way, I love Times Microwave LMR 400. What I'm saying though is, I don't care if it is that. Double check it to make sure that it's actually sitting at 50 ohms, because otherwise you're just going to be fighting a battle down the road. That's kind of a tip for everybody. If you get a chance to do that, I always do it. That's all I wanted to say. Thanks, Sarah. Ian.
Okay, yeah, and I'm not
I'll
rushing
second
off
that
here.
too.
We've got plenty of, I'm not rushing off, guys. We've got plenty of time. I didn't mean to make it sound like I was closing the net. We're not. We've got plenty of time here to continue talking about any of this stuff you guys want to talk about.
Hey, Ian,
yeah, go ahead.
your last slide there, you had an antenna on the lower left-hand corner. Yeah, that one over there that looks like 2 barbecue grills tied together.
Yeah.
That's called the tack antenna. And I've heard good things about it. It's like, that's probably a 20-meter version there, but those are only just a few feet apart, and guys have tried those, and apparently they work pretty well. It's a commercial antenna, a little bit expensive, but you can build one pretty easy.
Well, that's what I'm looking at now. It looks like that's just one long piece of wire that's wound around and around and around. So that could be like a 40-meter antenna or whatever.
Oh yeah, could be. That's a spiral antenna, and apparently they work pretty well. Now he doesn't work real. He needs to be up the same height as any other antenna, but it's still. I haven't tried one of these, and have been wanting to try it. So maybe here before long I'd give it a try. But that looks like that's probably a 20 or 40-meter version there. But people work these out of condos and that kind of place, and had pretty good luck with them.
Well, I'm looking at it. I could build that. That's not a problem. I mean, I'm literally thinking I just need a little pieces to hold the thing on and some PVC, and I could build that. Yeah,
it's called the tack antenna. That's after the guy that designed that. I think it's WA2TAK is his call.
That's cool. That's cool. Yep. We could build antennas. We could literally build antennas once a week for the rest of our lives and still not build them all.